sunscreen, bottled water, camaraderie, and checkpoints, complete with donuts. And no lives dependent on whether I actually made it. Now, we have another preconceived idea of Laura meeting the Indian encampment, and as you know, different perspectives, and maybe Barbara, you need to work on a new image for what it was like when Laura Secord actually met the Indian encampment. But Rick Hill, who spoke here earlier, we've had many conversations, and he too thinks she must have been absolutely terrified to come upon that encampment. So for those who choose to walk the entire journey, they can appreciate how long it was, and however they end up getting there, and that's why we'll be providing many different options on that day. But however they get there, when people arrive at the Q House, their journey will have ended, but their education will continue as they learn about the Battle of Beaver Dams and the Aboriginal allies who were so crucial to the victory. The Battle of Beaver Dams was not actually fought at the Q House. It was at a distance away at Beaver Dams, but it's where the plans were laid for its success. The victory at Beaver Dams changed the course of the war when the demoralized Americans retreated a few months later. But it was an important battle to recognize in other ways. It involved a woman, and it was fought entirely by Aboriginal allies. So it's rather hallowed ground there, where a woman and Native Nations people played an exceptional role. So to continue with our other plans for the Elora bicentennial, our goal for enduring the 1812 bicentennial legacy project is to designate this historic trail, the entire 32 kilometers, as the Elora Secord Legacy Trail. And we're working very hard with several communities and municipalities and many jurisdictions in this effort. Our hero did not make it easy for us. And we hope that this takes a while to come up. There's a bunch of other information that will show up probably when I go into the next one. And we hope that with the cooperation of relevant stakeholders, we can permanently mark Laura's Trail with discrete but distinctive trail markers. These markers will be linked to a suite of innovative and enduring multimedia educational resources that will celebrate the Secord legacy, emphasize the important role that women and Native Nations people played in the founding of our country, interpret the history, landscape, and Aboriginal trails along the route, and remain as permanent features of the trail and its surroundings. Sorry, there we go. So a lot of different resources. As another legacy initiative, the Friends of Laura Secord has also proposed a small pedestrian bridge to be constructed or moved to facilitate passage at the point where Laura purportedly made her way across 12 Mile Creek on a fallen log before she scaled the escarpment and met up with Native Nations allies to deliver her fateful message to Lieutenant Fitzgibbon. Building a bridge at Laura's Crossing will be a major step towards celebrating Laura Secord's legacy in a most appropriate and historically relevant manner. It could be accomplished in an ecologically sensitive fashion by using the existing informal but well-established trail networks in the area for access. A bridge at this point would also help to connect many disparate trails in the area into a unified and accessible regional network for recreation and alternative utilitarian transportation, and help make the Laura Secord Legacy Trail a significant tourist destination in its own right. It's still a wish at this point, but we, again, are working very hard with many people and groups on this initiative with fingers crossed. But we have an alternate route just in case, so nobody has to ford 12 Mile Creek if they don't want to. Laura's Secord's epic journey took place in Niagara. It is a story for all Canadians. Most of the events in the War of 1812 were geographically grounded in eastern Canada and would therefore have an understandable appeal at the local, regional, and provincial levels. However, the implication of these stories extends much further, as mentioned earlier. All Canadians should know how the seminal events in the War of 1812 laid the groundwork for the nation in which they now live, and about the unsung heroes who helped define it. And Laura Secord can help do that. Someone mentioned, let's see here. Okay. So we'd like to go, the story of Laura Secord goes beyond Niagara. And the Friends of Laura Secord is working on a major initiative, Walk into History with Us Canada, to encourage, encourage schools, other groups, and anyone really across the nation to get out, get some exercise, and walk the walk wherever they are, and whatever their ability. We don't expect young children or most people actually to walk 32 kilometers all at once, but they can do it tailored to their own abilities throughout the year. We hope to encourage a healthful recreational challenge for everyone, regardless of age or ability. And our websites, webcasts, and social media resources will allow those who are unable to actively engage in the event to experience it virtually. That was it. Oh, there we go. So, across Canada. We're taking it across Canada. So, taken together, the elements of our plans for the Laura Secord Bicentennial will represent more than just a healthy walk to celebrate our national heroine. They will provide a recurring opportunity for an annual celebration, a permanent legacy trail for recreation, interpretation, and tourism, and a unique and entertaining excuse for people across Canada to put on their hiking boots, get some exercise, and learn a little history along the way. Laura Secord remains an iconic figure who, perhaps more than anyone, represents the quiet determination and exceptional resolve of ordinary citizens to preserve and protect the values central to Canadian society that we enjoy today. Her story continues to inspire young and old, and her legacy is far-reaching. I am a proud, direct descendant of this courageous woman who walked that astonishing journey nearly 200 years ago, and I believe my great-great-great-grandmother, if she were looking down on us, would be incredibly proud of the many ways that she continues to walk her walk. What an example of personal strength and determination she still sets for young girls today, and I know I hear from them all the time. And consider the communities she connects locally, regionally, provincially, and nationally in shared respect. Consider also the beautiful artwork, such as Barbara Condor's and others, the creative plays and uplifting music, the thought-provoking literature she has already inspired, the healthy recreational challenges she can yet inspire, and the important stories that she can help tell. This is Laura Secord's legacy. This is Laura Secord's legacy, and the Friends of Laura Secord is doing what it can to ensure this legacy continues. The Laura Secord Bicentennial celebration will be a way to commemorate this national hero on this most appropriate historic occasion. I hope the Ontario Women's History Network will join in supporting this exceptional, unifying public initiative and enduring celebration of Canadian heritage and values. Now, someone talked earlier about the masculinity of the war, and I have to say that when I started getting involved in this and going to War of 1812 committees all over the place, I was a lone woman in a sea of men. So we need more women involved, and I hope you will help us in helping this woman, Laura Secord, to continue to inspire courage, perseverance, and personal strength in children across Ontario and Canada. Help Laura Secord to tell the stories of the war that defined Canada, the stories of others who contributed but weren't lucky enough to get their name on a candy box. I hope you can help Laura Secord challenge people everywhere to put on their shoes, walk the walk, and learn their country's historic roots along the way. So on behalf of Friends of Laura Secord, I invite you to walk into history with us, and
very much. Last but not least, Karen will speak to us about doing this in the classroom with those 12 and 13-year-olds.
Well, first of all, I'm going to say thank you for being attentive listeners, which is teacher jargon for saying thank you for shutting up. We have all sorts of things that we say to get your attention, and that would be one thing. While some technology is being set up here, I've got some things that I will use in the classroom, some of my units and roll cards and so forth. But I just wanted to say I'm very pleased to be asked to speak to you today. I'm humbled by the artistic and the academic experience in this room. I'm literally from the trenches, and some days it does feel like I'm in trench warfare because I try to share history with 12 and 13-year-olds. And some days it's fun and some days it's not. As my colleagues regularly quote, because I've been a teacher for 30 years, they regularly quote, "You've been in teaching since the earth cooled." That's true. I've been around for a long time, but I also see that as a blessing because as a history teacher, I'm allowed to have had lots of experience with all the different philosophies and strategies and approaches and all the things that the ministry, and I'm hoping there's nobody here from the ministry, asks me being history teachers, to do with kids and try to help them understand and appreciate where we came from. All of these seasonings have sort of created an approach to history that many of my colleagues and I now share. And I'd like to give you a little framework as to where a unit like this would come from. So why would it look like this? Well, I would, first of all, I really think I don't teach history. How can you teach history? You can teach equations for math, you can teach literary devices, you can teach kids spelling rules, or try to. But do you really teach history? So I have a different philosophy with my kids, and I use different verbs. I use verbs like sharing and helping kids discover and helping kids decipher the people and the events of the time, and that's a whole different slant. That's a whole different approach with kids. And discovering and deciphering and wondering and asking and so forth, it's different than teaching. Next, and I hope there are no ministry people here because I might be asking or answering some serious questions, there is no way that I can expect, and I had to give it up. I had to go, okay, I have a curriculum and I have it here to show you. I have a curriculum with all of this content. The grade 7 history course covers Native peoples to and including the rebellions of 1837. So, if you know the world of Canadian history, that's a whole lot of time. So I've had to give up the notion that every skill, every piece of content in the curriculum will be learned by all my students. It just doesn't happen. And it can't happen. So I had to give that up. I work in the world of large understandings and big pictures that kids know about before we begin a unit. And I also had to give up the idea that I could give a test at the end of a unit because they all don't come out of the unit with the same information. And that's what's really cool about this approach to history is, and for those of you academics who believe in the testing formula, I'm sorry, it doesn't happen in my classroom. I don't give tests where they have to regurgitate facts, because that's not what history is about. And I know that's a good way to kill history for a 12-year-old, is to make them learn all these facts and regurgitate them. So I've had to give up that notion, and I have to argue it with my colleagues, but it does seem to work with the kids that I'm working with. Ongoing all the time in my history class, and indeed my literacy classes, are two major goals. And the first one is to teach kids, and they are 12 years old, some of them 11 when they come into grade 7. It's hard for them to get these concepts, that they must be critical readers. So for them to read an article and say, "Miss Fraser, it's right because I read it." Yeah, maybe, but let's look at where it came from, who wrote the article, what's the perspective, what vested interest would that person have in writing that article, and appreciate that, and understand that before you accept everything in black and white as being the absolute truth. And that's hard for 12-year-olds, but if we can start them thinking about that in history classes, that's pretty important. The other thing that I try to really work with is teaching kids how to ask good questions. When I begin in September with my kids, I'll give them a topic, for instance, and I'll say, okay, I'm not going to give you the questions. You're going to create the questions. And so they'll come up with things like, what year were you born? How many kids did you have? Did you go on a ship? Did you do this? Did you do that? And those are beginning questions, but gradually we work into questions that involve them more inferencing and analyzing and synthesizing information. And that's really important that they start to learn how to ask good questions, not just for history, but for all sorts of things that they're going to confront in their academic careers. Now, I know that many of you, all of you probably, and I'm not sure about your expertise, you deal in the world of historical accuracy. Of course you do. You're historians and you're professors, and that's really important to you. And it's important to me as a teacher as well. But I have to go beyond historical accuracy and work in the world of historical possibility. And that's what that's what I want my students, when they create their projects, which, by the way, aren't a poster to come see and tell them everything you know about to come see. That's not a history project, that's a report, something different. What I want them to create for me is something that they created based on some historical accuracy, but more in the world of, is this possible for this timeline? And so for them to be able to produce those kinds of projects, they have to know a lot of facts. They don't think they do. So I'm coming in the back door. They have to know a lot of facts. But what they create is based on what they know. And the enduring question all the time I ask them is that possible in that timeline? Is that possible for that person, a woman for instance, to be able to really do that? And